The crystal chandelier cast harsh shadows across Adrian Cole's face as he sat alone on the marble bench in the Grand Plaza Hotel's winter courtyard. Just 2 hours ago, he had walked into the city's most exclusive gala as one of the most powerful men in business. Now he was nothing more than a ghost haunting the edges of his former life. "I'm sorry, but I don't think we'd be a good match," the fifth woman had said, her voice dripping with false sweetness as she backed away from him. The whispers had followed her retreat like poison spreading through water. "Did you hear about his company? They say he's lost millions. His fiancée left him for his best friend. He's finished." Adrian loosened his black tie and let his head fall into his hands. 6 months ago he had been on top of the world. Cole Industries was thriving, his engagement to society darling Rebecca Morrison was the talk of every newspaper, and his bank account had more zeros than most people could count. Tonight, he couldn't even get a dance from a woman who used to call him 3 times a week. The sound of wheels on marble made him look up. A woman in a simple gray uniform was pushing a cleaning cart across the courtyard, her movements efficient and purposeful. She was beautiful in a way that made Adrian's chest tighten, natural, unguarded, with kind eyes that seemed to see everything. Her dark skin glowed under the courtyard lights, and when she noticed him sitting there, she paused. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice warm and genuinely concerned. "Are you okay? You look like you might need some water." Adrian blinked, caught off guard by the simple question. When was the last time someone had asked if he was okay without wanting something in return? He cleared his throat. "I'm fine. Just needed some air." The woman, her name tag read Ava, didn't seem convinced. She reached into her cart and pulled out a small bottle of water, walking over to him with the kind of confident kindness that comes from a good heart. "Here. It's been a long night, and these events can be overwhelming. Thank you." Adrian took the water, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. "I'm Adrian." "Ava Collins," she replied, sitting down beside him on the bench without invitation. "I work the night shift here. Been cleaning up after fancy parties for 3 years now. You'd be surprised how many people need to step outside and breathe for a while." Adrian found himself really looking at her. There was something about Ava that made the tightness in his chest ease just a little. She wasn't trying to impress him or get something from him. She was just being human. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to be one of them? The people at the parties?" Ava considered this, tilting her head slightly. "Sometimes. But then I see how stressed they all look, how they talk to each other like they're always performing, and I think maybe I'm better off just being me. Money can't buy peace of mind, you know?" "No," Adrian said quietly. "It really can't." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the sounds of the party drifting out from inside the hotel. Adrian sipped his water and felt something he hadn't experienced in months: actual calm. This woman didn't know who he was, didn't care about his stock prices or his social standing. She had seen a person who looked sad and offered help. It was the most genuine interaction he'd had in longer than he could remember. "I should let you get back to work," he said finally, though he didn't want her to leave. Ava smiled, and it was like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Work can wait a few more minutes. Sometimes people need someone to sit with them more than they need clean floors." She paused, studying his face. "Whatever's got you looking so lost, it's going to be okay. Things have a way of working out, even when we can't see how." Adrian felt his throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been at the bottom before and I'm still here. Still fighting, still believing that tomorrow might be better than today. That's all any of us can do, really." Ava stood up and brushed off her uniform. "I do need to finish my rounds, but if you're still here in an hour, I usually take my break around midnight. You're welcome to join me for coffee in the staff room. It's not fancy, but it's real." As she walked away, pushing her cart with that same purposeful grace, Adrian watched her go and felt something shift inside his chest. For the first time in months, he had somewhere to be that he actually wanted to be. Someone had looked at him and seen not his failures or his former success, but just a person who needed kindness. He pulled out his phone and looked at the 17 missed calls from his lawyer, his accountant, and various business associates. All of them wanted to discuss damage control, media strategies, and financial restructuring. None of them had asked if he was okay. Adrian stood up, straightened his shoulders, and walked back toward the hotel lobby. He had an hour to kill, and for once he wasn't dreading the wait. He was looking forward to coffee with a woman who offered water to strangers and believed that tomorrow might be better than today. The gala continued inside, the music and laughter a sharp contrast to the quiet moment he'd just shared in the courtyard. People brushed past him without recognition or acknowledgement, and Adrian realized he didn't care. He had found something more valuable than their approval. He had found hope in the form of a hotel janitor who saw him as human. Adrian spent the next hour walking the hotel corridors, not hiding exactly, but avoiding the ballroom where his former life continued without him. He watched Ava work from a distance, noticing how she moved with quiet dignity through her tasks. She refilled soap dispensers, emptied trash bins, and wiped down surfaces with the same care she had shown him in the courtyard. When midnight approached, he found himself standing outside the staff room, suddenly nervous. What was he doing? He was Adrian Cole, or had been, and she was a hotel employee. But then he remembered her smile and the way she had made him feel like a person worth caring about. "You came," Ava said, appearing behind him with 2 cups of coffee. Her face lit up with genuine pleasure. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I," Adrian admitted, accepting the coffee. The staff room was small and simple, with a few tables and chairs, a refrigerator, and motivational posters on the walls. It was the most welcoming place Adrian had been in months. They sat across from each other at a small table, and Ava pulled a sandwich from her bag. "Turkey and cheese," she said, breaking it in half without asking and pushing one piece toward him. "I always pack extra. My mom raised me to share." Adrian's stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since breakfast. At the gala, he'd been too anxious to even think about food. "Thank you. I can't remember the last time someone shared their dinner with me." "That's sad," Ava said simply, not in a pitying way but with genuine concern. "Everyone deserves to have someone care enough to share a meal." As they ate, Adrian found himself opening up in a way he hadn't in years. "I lost my job recently," he said, which was technically true. He had lost his position as CEO when the board voted him out. "Everything I thought I knew about my life just fell apart." Ava nodded. "I've been there. 2 years ago I lost my day job at the bank. Got laid off when they downsized. I was so scared I wouldn't be able to pay rent or help my little sister with college. That's when I started working here." She sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Scariest time of my life, but also when I learned what I was really made of." "What kept you going?" "My family. My dreams. And the belief that setbacks aren't the same as endings." She looked at him directly. "What about you? What's going to keep you going?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know yet. For the first time in my adult life, I really don't know." "That's okay too," Ava said gently. "Sometimes not knowing is the first step toward figuring out who we really are underneath all the things we thought defined us." They talked until Ava's shift ended at 6 in the morning. She told him about her night classes and social work, her volunteer work at the community center, and her dream of helping families navigate crisis situations. Adrian found himself sharing stories from his childhood, back when things were simpler and success was measured in little league home runs instead of stock points. "I should drive you home," Adrian offered as they prepared to leave. Ava laughed. "I take the bus. Have for 3 years. It's not glamorous, but it gets me where I need to go." "Please," Adrian said. "It's the least I can do after you shared your dinner and listened to me ramble all night." Something in his voice must have convinced her, because she nodded. "Okay. That's very kind of you." Adrian's car was still valet parked from the gala, a sleek black sedan that cost more than most people made in a year. He saw Ava's eyes widen slightly as the valet brought it around, but she didn't comment. Instead, she gave him her address and settled into the passenger seat like riding in expensive cars was something she did every day. "Thank you for tonight," Adrian said as he drove through the quiet pre-dawn streets. "I came to that party feeling like the world had ended. You made me remember that maybe it hasn't." "The world never ends," Ava said softly. "It just changes direction sometimes. The trick is learning to change with it instead of fighting the current." When they reached her apartment building, a modest complex in a working-class neighborhood, Ava turned to him before getting out. "Adrian? I know we just met, but I want you to know something. Whatever you lost, whatever went wrong, it doesn't define who you are. Who you are is the person who sat with me and shared stories and made me laugh at 4 in the morning. That person is worth fighting for." Adrian felt his chest tighten with emotion again. "Can I see you again?" Ava smiled. "I work every Tuesday through Saturday night. If you're ever in the neighborhood and need someone to talk to, you know where to find me." As Adrian drove home to his empty penthouse apartment, he realized something had fundamentally shifted inside him. 4 months, he had been drowning in his failures, measuring his worth by what he had lost. But Ava had looked at him and seen something worth saving. He pulled out his phone and, for the first time in weeks, ignored the flood of messages from lawyers and accountants. Instead, he found himself researching social work programs and community centers, wanting to understand the world that had shaped the woman who had shown him such kindness. Maybe Ava was right. Maybe setbacks weren't the same as endings. Maybe this was just the beginning of a story he hadn't known he was ready to write. 3 days later, Adrian found himself standing in the Grand Plaza Hotel lobby at 10 in the morning, feeling more nervous than he had during any business merger. He had told himself he was just in the neighborhood, but the truth was he had driven across town specifically hoping to see Ava again. The night shift employees would be getting off work soon, and he had timed his arrival perfectly. "Mr. Cole?" The daytime manager approached him with a mixture of recognition and confusion. "Can I help you with something? I'm looking for one of your employees. Ava Collins. She works the night cleaning shift." The manager's eyebrows rose. "May I ask why?" Adrian realized how this must look: a man in an expensive suit asking for a janitor. "She helped me the other night. I wanted to thank her properly. She just finished her shift, probably heading to catch the 10:15 bus." The manager pointed toward the back exit. "Staff parking is that way." Adrian hurried through the hotel, his heart racing like he was 17 again and asking someone to prom. He spotted Ava walking toward the bus stop, her uniform replaced by jeans and a simple blue sweater. She looked tired but beautiful, and when she saw him approaching, her face broke into a surprised smile. "Adrian, what are you doing here?" "I was hoping to buy you coffee," he said, slightly out of breath. "Real coffee, not the staff room variety." Ava looked at him curiously. "It's 10 in the morning. I just worked all night." "Then breakfast," Adrian said quickly. "Whatever you want. I can't stop thinking about our conversation the other night. You said things that made sense to me for the first time in months." For a moment, Ava seemed to consider saying no. Adrian could see the hesitation in her eyes, the recognition that they came from different worlds, that this friendship didn't make logical sense. But then she smiled and Adrian felt like he could breathe again. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here," she said. "Nothing fancy, but they make excellent pancakes." The Sunrise Diner was exactly the kind of place Adrian hadn't been to in years: red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floors, and a waitress who called everyone honey. Ava slid into a booth like she belonged there, and Adrian realized she probably came here often. This was her world and she was letting him into it. "So," Ava said after they had ordered pancakes for her, coffee and toast for him, "what's really going on? Men in $1,000 suits don't usually hunt down hotel janitors for breakfast." Adrian almost choked on his coffee. "How do you know how much my suit costs?" "I have eyes. And I've cleaned up after enough rich people to recognize expensive clothes." Ava leaned back in her booth, studying him. "The question is why someone who can afford to dress like that was sitting alone in a hotel courtyard looking like his world had ended." This was the moment Adrian had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. He could lie, continue to let her think he was just another guy down on his luck. Or he could trust her with the truth, or at least part of it. "I used to run a company," he said carefully. "A big company. I made some bad decisions, trusted the wrong people, and lost everything. The suit is left over from my old life." "What kind of company?" "Technology. Software development, mostly corporate solutions." It was true if incomplete. Coal industries had been much more than that, but software development was how it had started. "I built it from nothing and I watched it crumble just as fast." Ava was quiet for a moment, processing this. "That's why you looked so lost the other night. You didn't just lose a job. You lost your identity." "Exactly." Adrian felt relief wash over him. She understood. "For 15 years I was my company. Adrian Cole, CO. Without that title, I don't know who I am anymore." "You're the man who accepted water from a stranger and said thank you like it was the greatest gift he'd ever received," Ava said gently. "You're the person who listened to my stories about night school and volunteering like they were the most important things in the world. You're someone who drove across town to buy breakfast for a woman you barely know because she made you feel human again." She reached across the table and touched his hand. "That's who you are. Everything else is just job titles and bank balances." Adrian turned his hand palm up, capturing her fingers. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make everything seem so simple. So clear." Ava smiled. "Because it is simple. People make it complicated with all their expectations and fears and pride, but at the core life is about connection. About treating each other with kindness. About showing up for the people who matter." They talked through breakfast and into the afternoon. Ava told him about her childhood, growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. She talked about her little sister Gabrielle, who was studying pre-med at the local university, and how proud she was that her sacrifices were helping make Gabrielle's dreams possible. "That's why I'm taking the social work classes," she explained. I want to help families who are struggling the way we did. I want to be the person who shows up when everything falls apart and helps people find their way back. That's amazing, Adrian said, and he meant it. How many classes do you have left? About a year and a half. It's slow going because I can only afford to take 1 or 2 classes per semester, but I'll get there. Adrian felt an impulse he hadn't experienced in months, the desire to fix something, to help someone, not for business reasons or tax benefits, but simply because he cared. What if I help pay for your classes? You could go full-time, graduate sooner. Ava's expression shifted, becoming guarded. Adrian, I can't let you do that. Why not? I have the money, you have the dream. It makes perfect sense. Because I don't want you to think I'm being nice to you because I want something, Ava said firmly. I shared my sandwich with you because you looked hungry. I'm sitting here having breakfast with you because I like talking to you. Not because I'm hoping you'll rescue me financially. Adrian felt a stab of hurt, followed quickly by understanding. I didn't mean it like that. When was the last time someone asked me for help with something that actually mattered? When was the last time I had the chance to use my resources for something good instead of just making more money? Ava studied his face for a long moment. You really mean that, don't you? It's not about charity or tax write-offs. You genuinely want to help. I do. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. Slowly, Ava nodded. Okay. But we do this properly. You loan me the money and I pay you back after I graduate and get a job in my field. With interest. I don't need the money back, Ava. But I need to pay it back, she said firmly. That's how I maintain my dignity and our friendship. Deal? Adrian smiled, feeling lighter than he had in months. Deal. As they shook hands across the diner table, Adrian realized this was the first business agreement he had made in half a year that excited him. Not because of profit margins or market opportunities, but because it was going to help someone he cared about achieve something meaningful. Can I ask you something? Ava said as they prepared to leave. Anything. What are you going to do now? About work, I mean. You can't sit in hotel courtyards forever, feeling sorry for yourself. Adrian laughed, surprised by her directness. I honestly don't know. For the first time in my adult life, I have no plan. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Ava suggested. Maybe not having a plan means you're free to discover what you actually want instead of what you think you should want. As Adrian drove home that afternoon, Ava's words echoed in his mind. What did he actually want? For years he had chased success, money, status, approval from people who ultimately didn't matter. But sitting in a diner with a woman who saw him as simply human, he had felt more content than he could remember feeling in his penthouse office. Maybe Ava was right. Maybe not having a plan was exactly what he needed. Over the following weeks, Adrian found himself restructuring his entire life around Ava's schedule. He would arrive at the hotel around midnight, bringing coffee for both of them, and spend her breaks listening to stories about her classes or her volunteer work at the Riverside Community Center. What started as casual visits became the highlight of both their weeks. You know, you're becoming a fixture around here, Ava teased one Thursday night as they sat in the courtyard where they had first met. The other cleaning staff think I have a secret boyfriend. Adrian felt his chest tighten at the word boyfriend, but not in a bad way. What do you tell them? That you're a friend who's going through a rough time and needs someone to talk to. Ava looked at him curiously. That is what this is, right? Friendship. Right? Adrian said, though lately he had been wondering if that was entirely true. He looked forward to seeing Ava with an intensity that felt like more than friendship. When she smiled, his whole day improved. When she was tired or stressed, he wanted to fix whatever was wrong. Speaking of which, how are your new classes going? Ava's face lit up. Thanks to Adrian's loan, she had been able to register for 3 courses this semester and quit her second job at a grocery store. Amazing. I'm taking family crisis intervention, community resources management, and applied psychology. I actually understand why I'm working so hard now, you know? Every lesson feels like it's building towards something important. That's wonderful. Adrian meant it completely. Watching Ava thrive had become more satisfying than any business success he'd ever achieved. What about the community center? Still volunteering there? Every Saturday morning. We serve breakfast to families and help connect people with resources they need. Housing assistance, job training, childcare referrals. She paused, studying his face. You should come with me sometime. You might like it. Adrian blinked. To the community center? Why not? You said you're trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. Maybe seeing how other people help their communities would give you some ideas. The thought terrified and intrigued him in equal measure. Adrian hadn't done volunteer work since high school, and he had no idea how to talk to people who were struggling financially. What if they recognized him? What if they didn't trust him? What if he said the wrong thing? I don't know if I'd be any good at that kind of work, he said honestly. Nobody's good at it when they start, Ava said gently. But you learn by doing. And you learn by caring, which you already do. How do you know I care? Ava smiled. Because you ask questions. Real questions, not just polite conversation fillers. Because you remember what I tell you. Because when I mentioned that Mrs. Rodriguez at the center needed help finding a doctor who spoke Spanish, you spent 2 hours researching clinics and made me a whole list with phone numbers and addresses. Adrian had forgotten about that. That was just research. I'm good at research. That was caring wrapped up in research, Ava corrected. There's a difference. The following Saturday, Adrian found himself standing outside the Riverside Community Center at 7 in the morning, wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt, feeling more nervous than he had before any board meeting. The building was older and smaller than he had expected, but there was something warm and welcoming about it. People were already lining up outside, families with children, elderly individuals, young adults who looked like they were working multiple jobs to make ends meet. You came. Ava appeared beside him, wearing an apron that read Riverside Volunteer, and carrying a box of donated clothes. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, Adrian admitted. What do I do? Follow me. I'll start you on something easy. For the next 4 hours, Adrian served eggs and pancakes, helped sort donated clothing, and listened to more life stories than he had heard in years. A young mother told him about working 3 jobs while her husband recovered from a construction accident. An elderly man explained how his Social Security barely covered his medications, leaving little for food. A teenager mentioned dropping out of school to help support his siblings after their father was deported. Each story was a reminder of how insulated Adrian's world had been, how many struggles he had never had to face. But rather than feeling guilty or overwhelmed, he found himself energized. These weren't just problems to solve, they were people who deserved help, dignity, and hope. How was that? Ava asked as they cleaned up afterward. Humbling, Adrian said honestly. And amazing. I can't remember the last time I felt this useful. That's because you were being useful. Not just profitable or successful, actually helpful to people who needed it. As they walked to their cars, Adrian found himself seeing the neighborhood differently. Instead of just noticing the run-down buildings and lack of trendy restaurants, he saw a community where people looked out for each other, where neighbors became family, where small acts of kindness made real differences. Ava, he said suddenly, what would it cost to expand the community center's programs? To serve more families, maybe add job training or childcare? She stopped walking and looked at him. Why? Because what you're doing there matters. Because those people deserve more support than they're getting. Because I have money sitting in accounts doing nothing when it could be helping. Adrian? Ava's voice was soft, cautious. That's incredibly generous, but charity isn't the same as understanding. You can't just throw money at problems and expect them to disappear. I'm not talking about charity, Adrian said, surprised by his own certainty. I'm talking about investment. About being part of something that actually makes a difference. They had reached Ava's car, but neither of them made a move to leave. The morning sun was warming the air, and Adrian realized this was the first Saturday in months that he hadn't woken up wondering how to fill the empty hours until Monday. If you're serious about this, Ava said slowly, then you need to commit to more than just writing checks. You need to show up. You need to listen. You need to learn what these communities actually need instead of assuming you know. I want to do that, Adrian said. Will you teach me? Ava studied his face for a long moment, and Adrian felt like she was seeing past his words to his intentions. Finally she smiled. Okay, but we start small. Keep volunteering. Learn people's names. Hear their stories. Understand the problems before you try to solve them. Deal? As Adrian drove home, he realized something fundamental had shifted. For the first time since losing his company, he had a sense of purpose that had nothing to do with profit margins or stock prices. He wanted to be part of the world Ava had shown him, a world where success was measured and families helped and communities strengthened. That afternoon, he made his first anonymous donation to the Riverside Community Center, enough to expand their breakfast program and add an afternoon tutoring service for children. He didn't tell Ava about it, not yet. He wanted to earn the right to be part of her world through actions, not just money. But as he researched other community organizations and social service programs, Adrian felt something he hadn't experienced in months: excitement about the future. 2 months into their friendship, Adrian had become a fixture at both the Grand Plaza Hotel and the Riverside Community Center. He spent Tuesday through Saturday nights talking with Ava during her breaks, and every Saturday morning serving breakfast to families who had begun to recognize and welcome him. The anonymity he had initially craved was giving way to genuine connections with people who knew him simply as Adrian, who volunteers with Ava. Mrs. Rodriguez asked about you yesterday, Ava mentioned during one of their midnight coffee sessions. Her grandson Miguel got accepted into that computer program you told him about. She wanted to make sure you knew. Adrian smiled, remembering the shy 14-year-old who had mentioned loving video games but never imagining he could learn to create them. That's wonderful. Did you tell her I'll help him with the application essays if he needs it? I did. She almost cried. Ava looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just a sad rich guy who needed someone to listen to his problems. I never imagined you'd become so important to so many people. Important. Adrian, you've helped 12 families find better housing, connected 8 people with job opportunities, and personally tutored 6 kids in basic computer skills. The center's breakfast program has doubled because of your donations. You've become part of our community. The word, "our," sent warmth through Adrian's chest. I never expected to find something I cared about this much. What did you care about before? In your old life? Adrian considered this. Success, I guess. Growth. Beating the competition. Making more money than I could ever spend. He shook his head. It all sounds so empty now. It's not empty if it taught you skills you're using now, Ava said thoughtfully. Your business experience is why you're so good at connecting people with resources. Your leadership background is why families trust you to advocate for them. Maybe everything that happened was preparing you for this. They were sitting in their usual spot in the hotel courtyard, sharing a bag of pretzels Ava had bought from a vending machine. It was a warm spring night, and Adrian found himself studying Ava's profile in the soft lighting. When had she become so beautiful to him? When had her laugh become the sound he most wanted to hear? Can I tell you something? He said suddenly. Always. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Ava turned to look at him fully, her expression unreadable. Adrian? I know, he said quickly. I know we come from different worlds. I know I'm still figuring out who I am without my old life. I know this probably complicates everything. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just friendship for me. You've changed how I see everything myself, success, what actually matters. I needed you to know. Ava was quiet for so long that Adrian began to panic. Had he ruined everything? Had he misread all the signs, all the moments when their hands touched or their eyes lingered on each other? I care about you too, she said finally. More than I expected to. More than I planned to. But I need to know this is real. Not just gratitude or loneliness or some kind of rescue fantasy. I need to know you see me as an equal partner, not someone you're saving or someone who saved you. Adrian reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. Ava, you're the strongest person I know. You work full-time, go to school, volunteer every weekend, and still find energy to care about everyone around you. You don't need saving. If anything, you saved me. You showed me what real strength looks like, what actual success means. I don't want to rescue you. I want to build something with you. What kind of something? I don't know yet. A life where we both get to be ourselves but together. Where your dreams and mine support each other instead of competing. Where we use whatever resources we have, your heart, my connections, our combined stubbornness to help people like the families at the center. Ava smiled, the first real smile since he'd made his confession. You've really thought about this. I've thought about nothing else for weeks. Adrian brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. I love your mind, Ava. I love how you see solutions where other people see problems. I love how you make everyone around you feel valued and heard. I love that you chose to help a stranger in a hotel courtyard and somehow changed both our lives in the process. I love you too, she said softly. I think I have for a while now. I just wasn't sure if what I was feeling was real or if I was getting caught up in how good it felt to be seen the way you see me. How do I see you? Like I matter. Like my dreams are worth pursuing. Like my opinions are valuable. She paused. Like I'm beautiful. You are beautiful. Inside and out. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing this shift in their relationship. Finally, Ava spoke again. If we do this, if we try being more than friends, we have to be honest with each other about everything. No secrets, no trying to protect each other from difficult truths. Can you promise me that? Adrian felt a flicker of anxiety. He had been honest about losing his job and his company, But he hadn't told her the full scope of his wealth or his former status as one of the city's most prominent CEOs. He told himself it was because he wanted her to love him for who he was now, not who he had been. But looking into her eyes, he knew she deserved complete honesty. "I promise," he said. "Complete honesty starting now." "Good. Then tell me something true that you haven't told me yet." Adrian took a deep breath. "I'm afraid that when you really understand how different our backgrounds are, you'll decide I don't belong in your world. And I'm afraid that when your old life calls you back you'll remember that I'm just a hotel janitor and realize you can do better." They looked at each other for a moment, both recognizing the fear in the other's eyes. Then Ava laughed and Adrian felt his anxiety dissolve. "We're quite a pair," she said. "Both terrified of not being good enough for each other." "Maybe that's how we know it's real," Adrian suggested. "If it was easy, it probably wouldn't matter as much." The next week brought a shift in their dynamic that felt both natural and thrilling. Adrian still came to the hotel during Ava's shifts, but now their conversations were punctuated by gentle touches, shared glances that lasted longer than friendship required, and an underlying current of affection that made everything feel new. "You know," Ava said one night as they walked through the hotel service corridors, "I never thought I'd be someone who had workplace romance." "Technically, I don't work here," Adrian pointed out. "No, but you're here so much that Jerry from maintenance asked if you were applying for a job." Adrian laughed. "What did you tell him?" "That you're independently unemployed." "Is that what I am?" Ava stopped walking and turned to face him. "You're someone who's in transition. Someone who's discovering that success doesn't have to look like what everyone else expects it to look like." She was right, Adrian realized. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't measuring his worth by external achievements. He was finding meaning in relationships, in community work, in the simple pleasure of making Ava smile. "I got some news today," Ava said as they continued walking. "I've been accepted for a summer internship with the Department of Social Services. It's part of my program, and it means I'll be working with families in crisis intervention." "That's amazing." Adrian stopped and pulled her into a hug, spinning her around in the empty hallway. "I'm so proud of you." "It's unpaid," she said when he set her down. "Which means I'll need to keep working here at night to pay bills. It's going to be exhausting, but it's exactly the experience I need." "What if you didn't have to work here during the internship?" Adrian asked. "What if someone covered your expenses for those 3 months so you could focus completely on learning?" Ava gave him a look. "Adrian Cole, are you trying to financially support me again?" "I'm trying to invest in your education so you can help more families in the long run. It's a sound business strategy." "Aha. And what do you get out of this sound business strategy?" Adrian pretended to consider this seriously. "The satisfaction of knowing that the woman I love is getting the best possible training to do the work she's passionate about. Plus, you'll be less tired, which means you'll be more likely to want to spend your free time with me instead of sleeping." Ava shook her head, but she was smiling. "You make it very hard to maintain my independence, you know that?" "I'm not trying to compromise your independence. I'm trying to support your dreams." "There's a difference?" "Yes. Supporting your dreams means I want you to succeed because your success makes you happy, and your happiness matters to me. Compromising your independence would mean I want you to need me so you won't leave." Ava studied his face. "And you don't want me to need you?" "I want you to choose me," Adrian said simply. "Every day because you want to be with me, not because you have to be." That night, as Adrian drove home, he realized how much his definition of love had changed. 6 months ago, love had been about possession, about finding someone who enhanced his status and made him look successful. Now, love was about partnership, about finding someone whose dreams he wanted to help achieve even if it meant she might outgrow him. For the first time in months, Adrian felt like he was exactly where he belonged. 3 months into his relationship with Ava, Adrian received a call that changed everything. He was sitting in his apartment researching grant opportunities for community organizations, when his phone rang with a number he hadn't seen in months. "Adrian, thank God," came the voice of his former business partner, James Mitchell. "We need to talk. In person. Today." "James, I told you I'm not interested in getting back into. Coal Industries is hemorrhaging money. The new management team has made 3 major mistakes in the past month, and our biggest client just threatened to pull their contract. The board is panicking." James paused. "They want you back." Adrian felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean back?" "As CEO. Full authority, complete control, whatever salary you want. They're willing to admit they made a mistake letting you go." 4 months, this call would have been everything Adrian wanted to hear. The vindication, the return to power, the chance to reclaim his former life. Now, sitting in his modest apartment with community center flyers spread across his coffee table, he felt something unexpected: reluctance. "I need time to think about it," he said. "Adrian, they need an answer by Friday. This is your company. Your life's work." After hanging up, Adrian sat in silence for a long time. 6 months ago, coal industries had been his identity, his pride, his measure of worth. Now, the thought of returning to 60-hour weeks, constant stress, and decisions based purely on profit margins felt suffocating. But it was also an opportunity. If he went back, he could implement the values Ava had taught him. He could create jobs that paid living wages, establish programs that supported employees' families, build partnerships with community organizations like Riverside. He could use his company as a force for good instead of just a money-making machine. That night he told Ava about the offer. "What do you want to do?" she asked. They were sitting in her small apartment for the first time, sharing takeout Chinese food and talking about their days. Her place was tiny but warm, filled with textbooks, plants, and photos of her family. "Honestly, part of me wants to say no. I've been happier these past few months than I was in years of running that company. But I keep thinking about what we could accomplish if I had that kind of resources and influence again. Real change, Ava. Not just helping one family at a time, but changing systems that keep families in crisis." Ava set down her chopsticks and looked at him seriously. "Can you do that without losing yourself again? Without becoming the person who was so miserable 6 months ago that he sat alone in hotel courtyards?" "I don't know. But I think I have something now that I didn't have before." "What's that?" "A reason to stay grounded. Someone who'll remind me what actually matters when I get caught up in boardroom politics and profit reports." Ava smiled. "Is that your way of asking me to be your conscience?" "That's my way of saying I can't imagine making any major life decisions without your input anymore." The next day, Adrian met with the coal industry's board of directors for the first time in 6 months. Walking into the familiar conference room felt like putting on old clothes that no longer fit quite right. The faces around the table were apologetic but desperate, and Adrian realized they weren't offering him his job back because they respected him, they were offering it because they needed him. "We've learned from our mistakes," Board Chair Margaret Thornton was saying. "We're prepared to give you complete autonomy to run the company as you see fit." "Complete autonomy?" Adrian asked. "Within reason, of course. As long as profitability." "No," Adrian interrupted. "If you want me back, it's with actual complete autonomy. I want to restructure our employee benefits, implement profit-sharing programs, establish community partnerships, and shift our focus towards sustainable technology solutions even if they're less immediately profitable." The room fell silent. Finally, Margaret spoke. "Adrian, we understand you want to make some changes, but we have shareholders to consider. The shareholders can consider finding a new CEO if they don't like my vision," Adrian said calmly. "You came to me because the company is failing under traditional management. I'm offering you a different approach, one that builds long-term value by treating employees, communities, and the environment as stakeholders, not just expenses." He stood up from the table. "I'll take the job, but only if the board agrees in writing to support these changes for a minimum of 2 years. You'll see results, but they might not look like what you're used to measuring." That evening, Adrian waited nervously for the board's decision. When the call came, Margaret's voice was resigned but accepting. "You have a deal, Adrian. 2 years, full autonomy. Don't make us regret this." Adrian's first day back as CEO of Coal Industries felt surreal. His assistant, Patricia, greeted him with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Cole, we're so glad you're back. The company hasn't been the same without you." "Thank you, Patricia. Could you schedule all-hands meetings for each department this week? I want to talk to everyone about the changes we're going to make." Over the next month, Adrian threw himself into rebuilding his company according to the values Ava had taught him. He increased the minimum wage for all employees by 30%. He established on-site childcare and flexible work arrangements for parents. He created partnerships with local community colleges to provide tuition assistance for employees wanting to further their education. Most importantly, he launched the Coal Community Initiative, a program that partnered with organizations like Riverside Community Center to provide technology training, job placement services, and small business development support in underserved neighborhoods. "You're taking a huge risk," James warned during one of their strategy meetings. "These programs are expensive, and the return on investment is unclear." "The return on investment is a workforce that's loyal, motivated, and connected to the community," Adrian replied. "It's customers who trust us because we demonstrate that we care about more than just their money." It's sustainable growth instead of short-term profit spikes. The changes weren't universally popular. Some longtime employees resented the new focus on work-life balance, preferring the old culture of long hours and cutthroat competition. A few shareholders grumbled about decreased quarterly profits, though Adrian's projections showed stronger long-term growth potential. But the majority of employees responded with enthusiasm that surprised even Adrian. Productivity increased. Sick days decreased. The company's reputation in the community improved dramatically. Most importantly, Adrian found that he loved going to work again. "You're different," Ava observed one Saturday morning as they worked together at the community center. "More confident. More yourself." "How do you mean?" "You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're just doing good work because it's good work." Adrian smiled, watching Ava help a young mother fill out job applications while her toddler played nearby. "I learned that from you. The idea that work should be about contribution, not just achievement. Look at you, getting all philosophical. Look at you, changing my entire worldview without even trying." As Adrian drove to work that Monday morning, he realized something remarkable had happened. He had gotten his old life back, but he was living it as a completely different person. The scared, desperate man who had sat alone in a hotel courtyard 6 months ago had been replaced by someone who knew what he valued and why. Someone who had learned that true success wasn't about being better than other people, it was about being better than he used to be. Spring had settled into early summer when Adrian realized he was completely and irrevocably in love with Ava Collins. It wasn't a sudden revelation but a gradual understanding that had grown alongside their relationship over the past 4 months. Every conversation deepened his respect for her mind. Every shared laugh made him want to create more reasons for her to smile. Every moment apart made him count the hours until he could see her again. They had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Adrian would finish his CEO duties by 6 o'clock, something that would have been impossible before Ava taught him about work-life balance, then meet her for dinner before her shift at the hotel. On weekends, they volunteered together at Riverside Community Center, where they had become known as a team. People would approach them as a unit, seeking help with problems or sharing good news about their progress. "You know what I love about working with you?" Ava said one Saturday as they finished serving lunch to families. They were cleaning up together, moving around each other in the kitchen with the easy coordination of people who had done this many times before. "What's that?" Adrian asked, drying dishes while she washed. "You listen to understand, not to fix. When Mrs. Garcia was telling you about her son's struggles in school, you didn't immediately start offering solutions. You asked questions until you really understood what she needed. I learned that from you. From watching how you interact with people here." Ava smiled, and Adrian felt that familiar warmth in his chest that came from making her happy. "You're a good student." That evening they walked through Riverside Park, the same neighborhood where Ava lived and where Adrian had learned to see his city from a completely different perspective. The setting sun painted everything in soft golden light, and Adrian found himself memorizing the way Ava looked with her face turned toward the sky, completely at peace. "Can I tell you something?" he said, stopping beside the small pond where families were feeding ducks. "Always." Adrian took her hands, feeling suddenly nervous despite months of growing intimacy between them. "I love you, Ava. Not just care about you or feel attracted to you. I love who you are, who you help me be, the life we're building together. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you see possibilities where other people see problems." Ava's smile was soft and certain. "I love you too, Adrian. I have for weeks now. I was just waiting to see if you were ready to hear it." "Ready to hear it?" "Ready to understand that loving me means loving all of this." She gestured around them at the park, the modest homes, the community center visible in the distance. "Loving my work, my dreams, my world. Not trying to change it or improve it, but accepting it as part of who I am. I do love all of it. I love that you showed me what community actually means. I love that you taught me success isn't about what you accumulate but what you contribute." Adrian stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. "I love that you saw something worth saving in a broken man sitting alone in a hotel courtyard. You weren't broken. You were just lost. Same thing sometimes." Ava shook her head. "No. Broken means something can't be fixed. Lost just means you need help finding your way home." When Adrian kissed her, soft and gentle beside the pond where children were laughing and couples were walking hand in hand, he felt like he had finally found his way home. Not to a place but to a person who understood him completely and loved him anyway. "I want to ask you something," he said when they broke apart, "but I'm terrified you'll say no." "Ask me anyway. Move in with me." Ava blinked, clearly surprised. "Adrian? I know it's a big step. I know we've only been together officially for a few months, but I hate saying goodbye to you every morning. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep holding you and have you be the first person I talk to about both the good and bad parts of my day. Your apartment is in the penthouse district. It's completely different from my world. Then we'll find something new. Something that feels like home to both of us. Or you can help me make my place feel more like yours, warm and real and welcoming. Adrian paused. The location doesn't matter to me, Ava. You matter. Us matter. Ava was quiet for a long moment, and Adrian felt his heart racing. Had he pushed too fast? Had he misread how serious she was about their relationship? What about when things get difficult? She asked finally. When the newness wears off and we have to deal with real problems like money and work stress and family issues? Then we deal with them together. We figure it out as we go, like people who love each other do. What about when you remember that you're Adrian Cole, successful CEO, and I'm Ava Collins, hotel janitor taking night classes? Adrian felt a flash of something that might have been panic. He still hadn't told her the full truth about his wealth and former status. He had told himself it was because he wanted her to love him for who he was now, but standing here asking her to build a life with him, he knew she deserved complete honesty. Ava, there's something I need to tell you. Something in his tone made her step back slightly. What is it? You know, I used to run a technology company. What I didn't tell you is how big it was. Cole Industries isn't just some startup I lost. It's one of the largest tech companies in the state. When I was CEO before, I was worth about $50 million. Ava stared at him. $50 million. Yes. And now? Now I'm worth about $60 million because the company's stock has recovered since I went back. Ava sat down heavily on a nearby bench. You're a millionaire. I'm a person who happens to have a lot of money. Money that I want to use for good things, for community programs and education funding and making sure people like the families we work with have opportunities for better lives. Adrian. Ava's voice was very quiet. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I was afraid you'd see me differently. I was afraid you'd think I was just some rich guy playing at caring about poor people. I was afraid you'd either want me for my money or refuse to be with me because of it. You lied to me. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. Ava looked up at him with hurt in her eyes. When I asked you about your company, when I asked about your life, when I worried about taking your money for school, you let me think you were someone else. You let me worry about being a burden on your finances when you have more money than I'll see in my lifetime. The money doesn't matter to how I feel about you. But it matters to how I feel about this relationship. Ava stood up and Adrian felt something cold settle in his stomach. I need time to think about this, Adrian. About what else you haven't told me. About whether I can trust you. Ava, please. I'll call you in a few days. I need some space to process this. As Adrian watched her walk away, her shoulders tense with anger and hurt, he realized he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had finally found someone who loved him for who he really was, and he had jeopardized it by not trusting her with the complete truth. For the first time in months, Adrian felt truly alone. Adrian spent 3 miserable days waiting for Ava to call. He threw himself into work, but even the satisfaction of implementing new community programs couldn't distract him from the hollow feeling in his chest. He had been texting her daily, not pushing, just letting her know he was thinking about her and ready to talk whenever she was. The responses had been brief but not unkind, still need time, and will call soon. On Thursday morning, everything changed. Adrian was in a board meeting, presenting quarterly results that showed both strong profits and significant community impact, when his assistant Patricia knocked on the conference room door. Mr. Cole, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an urgent call from the marketing department. Something about a magazine article. Adrian excused himself, stepping into the hallway to take the call. Adrian, we have a problem, said Jessica from marketing, her voice tight with stress. Business Weekly just published a feature story about your turnaround as CEO. It's positive coverage, but they included personal details about your relationship. Adrian felt his blood turn cold. What kind of personal details? They have photos of you volunteering at the Riverside Community Center. Photos of you with Ava Collins. The article calls her your inspiring girlfriend who helped transform the Millionaire CEO into a community champion. Adrian, they know her name, where she works, where she goes to school. This is about to be everywhere. Adrian closed his eyes, feeling the world tilt sideways. How did they get this information? Someone from the community center must have talked to them. The article quotes several people talking about how much you've both meant to their programs. Is it online yet? Posted an hour ago. It's already being shared on social media. Adrian hung up and immediately called Ava, but it went straight to voicemail. He tried texting, "There's a magazine article about us. I'm so sorry. Please call me." Then he called the hotel. "Ava Collins? She called in sick today," the manager told him. "First time in 3 years she's missed a shift without advance notice. Is everything okay?" Adrian's heart sank. She had seen the article. He left work immediately, driving straight to Ava's apartment. When he knocked on her door, it took several minutes for her to answer, and when she did, her eyes were red from crying. "You saw the article," he said. "Everyone saw the article." Ava's voice was flat, emotionless. "My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Reporters wanting to interview the janitor who won a billionaire's heart. Classmates asking if it's true that I'm dating someone worth $60 million. My supervisor at the hotel asking if I'm going to quit now that I've landed a rich man. Ava, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. But you knew it could happen. You knew that dating someone with your profile meant this was a possibility, and you never warned me. You never asked if I wanted to sign up for having my life examined by strangers." Adrian stepped into her apartment, though she hadn't invited him in. "You're right. I should have told you everything from the beginning. I should have prepared you for what being with me might mean. Should have, could have, would have." Ava wrapped her arms around herself. "Do you know what the worst part is? It's not even that you're rich. It's that everyone now thinks they understand our relationship. They think I'm some poor girl who got lucky and landed a wealthy man. They think you're some savior who rescued me from my terrible life. That's not what we are. Isn't it?" Ava's voice broke slightly. "You pay for my school. You fund the programs at my community center. You've solved every financial problem I've mentioned. How is that different from what they're saying? Because I love you. Because you changed my life, not the other way around. Because everything I've done has been about supporting your dreams, not replacing them with my money." Ava sat down on her small couch, looking exhausted. "Adrian, I need you to understand something. I've worked for everything I have. My job, my education, my independence. I've never wanted to be someone who was taken care of or rescued or supported by a man, even one I love. I know that. It's one of the things I love most about you. But that's exactly what this looks like from the outside. And now it's what it feels like from the inside too." She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to be with someone whose money solves my problems before I even know I have them. I don't know how to maintain my sense of self when dating you means giving up my privacy, my anonymity, my normal life." Adrian sat down beside her, careful not to touch her without permission. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to be Adrian Cole's girlfriend instead of just Ava Collins. You'll always be Ava Collins. The woman who works 2 jobs to pay for school. The woman who volunteers every weekend because she believes in helping people. The woman who saw a stranger sitting alone and offered him water and kindness. That's who you are regardless of who you're dating. But that's not how the world will see me now." Ava wiped her eyes. "That article called me inspiring, like I'm some kind of charity case who taught the rich man about real life. They made our love story sound like a movie where the wealthy guy learns important lessons from the poor but noble girl." Adrian felt anger rise in his chest, not at Ava but at the situation, at his own mistakes, at a world that couldn't see their relationship for what it really was. "I'll have my lawyers contact the magazine. I'll demand they retract the personal information about you. You can't retract the internet, Adrian. This is permanent." They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Adrian spoke. "What do you need from me? How do I fix this?" "I don't know if you can fix it." Ava's voice was very small. "I need time to figure out if I can have a relationship that comes with this much public scrutiny. I need to know if you can love me without trying to solve my problems with money. I need to understand if we can be equals when the whole world sees us as a rich man and the poor woman he's helping. We are equals, Ava. In every way that matters. Then prove it. Step back from trying to manage my life. Let me handle the media attention myself. Let me decide how much of your support I want to accept and how much I want to maintain my independence." Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to insist that protecting her from this media circus was his responsibility. But looking at her face, he realized that his instinct to shield her from consequences was exactly the problem she was talking about. "Okay," he said quietly. "What does that look like?" "It looks like you going home and letting me figure out how to handle this situation. It looks like you trusting me to be strong enough to deal with difficult things. It looks like you understanding that I might decide this is all too much." The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. "Are you breaking up with me?" I'm asking for space to think about whether we can make this work without me losing myself in the process. Adrian stood up slowly, feeling like his heart was breaking. I love you, Ava. I know I made mistakes, but I love you. I love you too. That's not the question. The question is whether love is enough when everything else is this complicated. As Adrian drove home, the city skyline blurring through his tears, he realized that all his money and influence meant nothing if he couldn't protect the person he loved from the consequences of loving him back. For the second time in a year, Adrian Cole had lost everything that mattered to him. This time it was entirely his own fault. Adrian spent the weekend in agony, respecting Ava's request for space while desperately wanting to fix everything. He avoided social media and news coverage, but his phone rang constantly with calls from reporters, business associates wanting to discuss the positive publicity, and friends he hadn't heard from in months who suddenly wanted to meet his inspiring girlfriend. On Monday morning he called an emergency staff meeting at Cole Industries. I need to address something with all of you, he told his employees. Some of you may have seen the recent magazine article about my personal life. While I'm proud of the community work our company supports, I want to make it clear that no one, not employees, not community partners, not anyone associated with Cole Industries should feel pressured to speak to media about our programs or about me personally. He paused, looking around the room at faces he had come to respect and trust. Our community initiatives exist because they're the right thing to do, not because they make good publicity. I need your help in ensuring we continue that work with integrity, regardless of media attention. After the meeting, Adrian retreated to his office and did something he hadn't done since taking back control of his company. He cleared his entire schedule for the day. Instead of managing business crises or reviewing quarterly projections, he sat at his desk and tried to figure out how to save his relationship with the woman he loved. The answer came to him Tuesday evening in the form of an unexpected visitor. Mr. Cole? Patricia knocked on his office door. There's someone here to see you. Mrs. Rodriguez from the Riverside Community Center? Maria Rodriguez walked into Adrian's office wearing her volunteer apron and a determined expression. She was the grandmother who had thanked him for helping her grandson Miguel get into the computer program, and she was one of the people quoted in the magazine article. Mrs. Rodriguez, please sit down. I'm so sorry about the media attention this has brought to the center. That's why I'm here, she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. I'm the one who talked to that reporter. Adrian blinked. You are. He came to the center last week asking questions about you and Ava. He said he was writing a positive story about business leaders who give back to their communities. I thought it would be good for the center, good for our programs. I didn't know. She wrung her hands. I didn't know it would hurt Ava. Mrs. Rodriguez, you couldn't have known. The reporter should have been more clear about how he planned to use the information. Ava hasn't been to the center since the article came out. People are asking where she is, if she's okay. Some of the volunteers are worried that all this attention will bring problems to our programs. Adrian felt his chest tighten. What kind of problems? The kind that happen when poor people get too much notice from rich people. When community programs become charity cases in magazines instead of neighbors helping neighbors. Adrian was quiet for a moment, processing this. What can I do to help? Come to the center on Saturday. Talk to people. Show them that nothing has changed, that you're still just Adrian who serves breakfast and helps kids with their homework. Mrs. Rodriguez, I don't think that's a good idea. My presence might make things worse. Or it might make things better. Adrian, these people care about you. They care about Ava. They don't understand why a magazine article means you both disappear from their lives. That evening, Adrian did something he hadn't done since Ava asked for space. He called her. I know you said you needed time, he said when she answered. But Mrs. Rodriguez came to see me today. She's worried about you, about the impact this is having on the community center. I can't go back there right now, Ava said, her voice tired. Everyone looks at me differently now. They want to know about you, about your money, about whether I'm going to quit my jobs and become some kind of society lady. What if we went together? What if we showed them that nothing has changed between us and the work we do there? Has nothing changed, Adrian? The question hung between them, loaded with all the hurt and confusion of the past week. Our feelings haven't changed, Adrian said carefully. I still love you. I still respect what you do. I still want to support the community programs we both care about. But you still want to support them with your money. You still want to solve problems I haven't asked you to solve. You still see me as someone who needs your help instead of someone who chooses to work with you. Adrian felt frustrated tears prick his eyes. I don't know how to love you without wanting to help you achieve your dreams. I don't know how to have the resources I have and not use them for people I care about. Then learn, Ava said simply. Learn to love me by asking what I need instead of assuming you know. Learn to help by supporting my choices instead of trying to make my life easier. Learn to be my partner instead of my benefactor. How do I do that? Start by coming to the community center on Saturday. Not as Adrian Cole, CEO, but as Adrian who volunteers. Not with a plan to fix everything but just to show up and do the work. After she hung up, Adrian sat in his apartment, the same penthouse that had felt empty before he met Ava and felt empty again now, and tried to understand what she was asking of him. It wasn't just about the money or the publicity. It was about learning to love someone as an equal partner instead of someone to rescue or protect. Saturday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching Adrian's mood as he drove to the Riverside Community Center. He had spent the week trying to figure out how to be helpful without being overwhelming, how to show love without showing off his resources. When he walked into the center's kitchen, conversation stopped. The usual volunteers, people he had worked alongside for months, looked at him with a mixture of curiosity, wariness, and something that might have been disappointment. Adrian? Miguel Rodriguez ran up to him, the teenager's face bright with excitement. I saw the article about you. You're famous. Not famous, Adrian said, ruffling Miguel's hair. Just someone who got more attention than he wanted. How's the computer program going? As Miguel launched into an excited description of his first coding project, Adrian felt some of the tension in the room ease. Mrs. Garcia approached with her usual shy smile, asking if he would help her daughter with her college application essays. Mr. Thompson wanted advice about starting a small business. Slowly, the morning began to feel normal again. Adrian served breakfast, sorted donations, and listened to the stories and concerns of people he had come to care about deeply. But there was one person noticeably absent. Where's Ava? Asked 10-year-old Sophia, tugging on Adrian's shirt as he helped her practice reading. She always helps me with the hard words. She's taking a break, Adrian said carefully. But I bet she misses you too. Around 11 o'clock, just as Adrian was beginning to think Ava wouldn't show up, the front door opened and she walked in. She looked tired and uncertain, but when she saw Adrian serving pancakes to the Morales family while their toddler sat on his lap, her expression softened slightly. Ava! Sophia squealed, running across the room to hug her. You came back. Of course I came back, Ava said, though her voice was shaky. This is my family too. For the next hour, Adrian and Ava worked in the same space but didn't speak directly to each other. Adrian helped with breakfast service while Ava assisted with the clothing donations. They moved around each other with practiced efficiency, but there was a careful distance between them that everyone seemed to notice. Finally, Mrs. Rodriguez intervened. Ava, Adrian, I need you both to help me move some boxes in the storage room. The storage room was small and cramped, forcing them to stand close together as Mrs. Rodriguez closed the door behind them. You two need to talk, she said firmly through the door. Don't come out until you figure this out. These families depend on both of you, and this awkwardness is making everyone uncomfortable. Adrian and Ava stood in the dim storage room, surrounded by boxes of donated clothes and canned goods, finally alone together for the first time since their fight. I've missed you, Adrian said softly. I've missed you too. Ava's voice was barely a whisper. But missing each other isn't enough to solve our problems. Then tell me how to solve them. Tell me how to be what you need me to be. Ava was quiet for a long moment, studying his face in the filtered light from the small window. I've been thinking about us all week. About what went wrong and what I want from this relationship. And I realized that I'm not angry because you have money. I'm angry because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. I'm hurt because you made decisions about our relationship like paying for my school, like supporting the community center without giving me the information I needed to make informed choices. Adrian nodded slowly. You're right. I was so afraid of losing you that I tried to control how you saw me instead of trusting you to love me for who I really am. I also realized something else, Ava continued. I was so determined to prove I didn't need rescuing that I was refusing help I actually wanted. When you offered to pay for my classes, part of me was grateful and relieved. But I couldn't admit that because I was afraid it made me weak or dependent. It doesn't make you either of those things. It makes you human. I know that now. Just like your wanting to help doesn't make you controlling. It makes you someone who loves me. They stood looking at each other in the storage room, both understanding that they were at a crossroads. They could let pride and fear and outside expectations destroy what they had built together, or they could choose to trust each other enough to figure out how to love better. I want to try again, Ava said finally. But I need things to be different. Tell me what different looks like. It looks like complete honesty even when the truth is uncomfortable. It looks like you asking before you help instead of assuming I want or need your assistance. It looks like me being honest about when I do want help instead of pretending I can do everything alone. Adrian stepped closer, hope blooming in his chest. And what about the media attention? The public scrutiny? We face it together. We don't let other people's opinions about our relationship matter more than what we know to be true about each other. I love you, Ava Collins. Not because you need saving or because you taught me important lessons about life. I love you because you're brilliant and kind and strong and beautiful. I love you because you make me want to be better than I am. I love you because when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. I love you too, Adrian Cole. Not because you can solve my problems or because you've made my life easier. I love you because you see me as worthy of respect and support. I love you because you listen to me and learn from me. I love you because you show up and do the work, not just with your money but with your time and attention and heart. When they kissed in the storage room, surrounded by donated clothes and canned goods, it felt like coming home after a long, difficult journey. It felt like forgiveness and hope and the promise of building something stronger than what they had before. When they finally emerged from the storage room 20 minutes later, Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting with a knowing smile. Better? She asked. Better, Ava confirmed, her hand firmly clasped in Adrian's. Good. Now come help serve lunch. These families aren't going to feed themselves. As they worked side by side for the rest of the afternoon, Adrian felt something settle into place. They weren't the same couple they had been before the magazine article and the fight and the painful week of separation. They were something new, two people who had chosen to trust each other with their whole selves, complicated histories and uncertain futures included. It felt like the beginning of something real and lasting and worth fighting for. 6 months later, Adrian stood in the same hotel courtyard where he had first met Ava, but everything about the scene was different. Instead of empty marble benches and the cold echo of his own despair, the space was filled with warm lights, flowers, and the people who had become their chosen family. Mrs. Rodriguez sat in the front row wearing her best dress, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Miguel, now thriving in his computer program and serving as the unofficial photographer, moved around the small gathering capturing every moment. The Morales family had driven up from their new apartment secured with help from Ava's internship work, and little Sophia was scattering flower petals with serious concentration. Dr. Patricia Williams, Ava's supervisor from her social work program, served as the officiant. James Mitchell stood beside Adrian as his best man, still amazed by the transformation he had witnessed in his business partner over the past year. Ava's sister Gabrielle had flown in from medical school to serve as maid of honor, her eyes bright with tears of joy for the sister who had sacrificed so much to help her achieve her dreams. But all of Adrian's attention was focused on Ava as she walked toward him through the courtyard where their love story had begun. She wore a simple white dress that she had chosen herself, paid for with money from her new job as a family crisis counselor with the Department of Social Services. Her hair was adorned with flowers that Mrs. Garcia had grown in her community garden. She looked radiant, confident, and completely herself. "You clean up nice," Ava said softly when she reached him, her eyes sparkling with humor and love. "You look beautiful," Adrian replied, taking her hands in his. "Are you ready for this?" "I've been ready since the night you accepted a bottle of water from a stranger." Dr. Williams began the ceremony with words about love being a choice made daily, about partnership requiring both vulnerability and strength, about building a life together that honored both individual dreams and shared values. But Adrian barely heard the formal words. He was lost in Ava's eyes, in the miracle of how they had found each other and fought for each other and chosen each other again and again. When it came time for their personal vows, Adrian went first. "Ava," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his chest, "a year ago I thought I had lost everything that mattered. I was sitting alone in this courtyard, convinced that my life was over, when you appeared with water and kindness and the simple question, 'Are you okay?' You saved me that night, not because you fixed my problems, but because you saw me as worth caring about when I couldn't see it myself." He paused, looking around at the faces of their community, people whose lives had been touched by both of their efforts to build something meaningful together. "You taught me that success isn't about what you achieve for yourself, but what you contribute to others. You showed me that love isn't about rescuing someone or being rescued, but about choosing to build something together that's stronger than either of you could create alone. You helped me understand that the best version of myself isn't the richest or most powerful version, it's the version that shows up for the people I care about." Adrian's voice grew stronger, more certain. "I promise to love you as an equal partner, to ask for your thoughts before making decisions that affect us both, and to support your dreams without trying to control them. I promise to show up for our community, for our future children, and for you, not just with my resources but with my time, my attention, and my whole heart. I promise to keep learning how to be the man you fell in love with, not perfect, but present, not rich, but real. When Ava began her vows, her voice was clear and confident. Adrian, when I offered you water that night, I was just being human to another human. I had no idea that simple act of kindness would change both our lives forever. You were lost, but you weren't broken. You were just someone who needed to remember who you really were underneath all the expectations and pressures of the world. She smiled, and Adrian felt his heart expand with pure joy. You taught me that accepting help doesn't make me weak, it makes me part of a community. You showed me that my dreams were worth investing in, not because you funded them but because you believed in them and in me. You helped me understand that love multiplies when it's shared, that supporting each other makes us both stronger instead of making either of us dependent. Ava's voice grew softer, more intimate. I promise to love you for who you are right now, not for who you used to be or who you might become. I promise to be honest about what I need and want, and to trust you enough to ask for help when I need it. I promise to support your growth and your work, and to remind you of your worth when the world tries to reduce you to your bank account or your business success. She looked around at their gathered friends and family. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our histories and our hopes, that serves our community, and that shows our future children what it looks like when two people choose each other every single day. When Dr. Williams pronounced them husband and wife, the cheer that went up from their small gathering could probably be heard throughout the hotel. Adrian kissed his wife. As flower petals rained down around them, thrown by delighted children and beaming grandparents. Mrs. Cole, Adrian murmured against Ava's lips. Miss Collins Cole, she corrected with a grin. I'm keeping my name too. Miss Collins Cole, Adrian amended, spinning her around as their friends and family surrounded them with hugs and congratulations. The reception was held in the community center where they had learned to work together, where they had discovered that love was about showing up and serving others and building something bigger than themselves. The decorations were simple but beautiful: flowers from the community garden, lights strung by volunteer teenagers, tables set with dishes borrowed from a dozen different families. Mrs. Rodriguez had insisted on making the wedding cake, a tres leches creation that she declared was good enough for any fancy hotel but made with love. Miguel had set up a playlist of music that ranged from salsa to soul to the contemporary pop that the children requested. The Martinez family provided the flowers. The Johnson family contributed homemade bread. It was a celebration created by community for community. During their first dance to a song Ava had chosen something about finding home in another person, Adrian marveled at the path that had brought them here. A year and a half ago, he had been a man who measured his worth in quarterly profits and stock prices. Tonight, he was someone whose wealth was counted in relationships, whose success was measured in families helped and communities strengthened. What are you thinking about? Ava asked as they swayed together, surrounded by the people who had become their chosen family. I'm thinking about how lucky I am that you were working the night shift at the right hotel on the worst night of my old life. It wasn't luck, Ava said, her eyes sparkling. It was the universe putting us exactly where we needed to be to find each other. Do you really believe that? I believe that love has a way of showing up when people are ready to recognize it. I believe that sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted is how you discover what you actually need. As the evening progressed, Adrian watched his wife, move through their wedding reception with grace and joy, hugging children who had drawn them pictures, listening to elderly guests tell stories about their own love stories, dancing with teenagers who looked up to her as a role model and mentor. James pulled Adrian aside during a quiet moment. You know, I've known you for 15 years and I've never seen you this happy. Not when we landed our biggest client, not when the company went public, not even when you made your first million. That's because this is different, Adrian said, watching Ava teach Sophia how to dance. This is real. What's your secret? How did you go from the guy who worked 80-hour weeks and measured success in stock points to this? Adrian smiled. I learned that the best investments aren't about getting returns. They're about giving returns to your community, to the people you love, to the version of yourself that you want to become. Later that night, after the last guest had been hugged goodbye and the community center had been cleaned and restored to its usual state, Adrian and Ava stood alone in the hotel courtyard where their story had begun. So, Ava said, leaning against the marble bench where Adrian had been sitting when she first approached him with water and kindness, what happens next? Next, we go on our honeymoon to Costa Rica, where you're going to teach me about sustainable tourism and I'm going to try not to check my email more than twice a day. And after that? After that, we come home and keep building the life we started. We work on expanding the community center's programs. We save money for the house we want to buy in this neighborhood. We figure out how to be married people who are still individual people with our own dreams and goals. And eventually? Adrian pulled his wife closer, marveling again at how perfectly she fit in his arms. Eventually, if we're very lucky and the timing is right, we add some little people to our family. People who will grow up knowing that success is about contribution, that wealth is about relationships, and that love is about showing up for each other every single day. That sounds perfect, Ava said, reaching up to kiss him softly. That sounds like exactly the life I want to build with you. As they walked hand in hand through the hotel lobby, past the place where Ava used to work night shifts and where Adrian used to attend meaningless social events, both of them felt the deep satisfaction of a story that had come full circle. They had found each other in this place during their darkest moments, and now they were leaving it together, ready to build a bright future. The night security guard, who had watched their courtship develop over months of midnight conversations, called out to them as they reached the exit. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Cole. It's been a privilege watching your love story unfold. Thank you, Roberto, Ava said warmly. Take care of yourself. Miss Collins Cole, Adrian corrected gently, and Ava squeezed his hand in appreciation. As they drove away from the Grand Plaza Hotel toward their new apartment, a modest place in Ava's neighborhood that they had chosen together, where they could walk to the community center and the local coffee shop and the life they were building together, Adrian realized that he had finally learned the difference between having everything and having enough. He had enough love, enough purpose, enough community, enough hope for the future. He had a partner who saw him clearly and loved him anyway, work that mattered, and a life built on values that could weather any storm. Most importantly, he had learned that the best love stories aren't about rescuing or being rescued. They're about two people who choose each other, support each other's growth, and build something together that makes the world a little bit better. As Ava fell asleep beside him that night in their honeymoon suite, Adrian whispered a prayer of gratitude to whatever forces had brought them together. He had gone from a man who had everything and felt empty to a man who had enough and felt full. It was, he realized, the best possible ending to the story that had begun with a simple question. Are you okay? Now finally he was.